So the cross product of vectors v and u in R3. So we have a vector v and a vector u. The cross product u cross v is the vector that is orthogonal to both u and v, and the angle theta is the angle between u and v, and we define this is the cross product is a vector with magnitude u cross v, magnitude of u cross v equals the length of u times the length of v times the sine of theta, and theta is between 0 and pi. And the way that we determine which way our vector that is orthogonal to u and v points is we place the tails of u and v together, and then we have our hand with our palm here and our fingers over here, and we curl our fingers towards v. And whichever way our thumb is pointing, that's the way our vector goes. So if you try that, you should have your thumb pointing up. On the other hand, if you look at v cross u, you would have your hand starting at v and curling around to u, which means that your thumb would be pointing down. So if there's the case that the cross product equals 0, then the direction is undefined. Well, if u cross v is 0, then that means that length of u times the length of v times sine of theta equals 0. Since u and v must have length, unless they're the 0 vector, in which case we don't have a cross product. So u and v both have length, so that means that sine of theta equals 0. So that means that theta equals 0 or pi, which means that u and v are parallel. And that's the only time that our cross product is 0. Another way to look at the cross product is that if we have vector v and vector u, and this is angle theta, the length of this height here is sine of theta times the length of u, and the area of the parallelogram, if we have vector u over here and vector v here, so this parallelogram, so the area of a parallelogram with sides vector u and vector v, and theta being the angle between vector u and vector v, is the length of vector u times the length of vector v times the sine of theta, or the magnitude of the cross product of vector u cross vector v. So let's say we want to find the magnitude and direction of u cross v, where u is the vector 0, negative 4, 0, and v is the vector 0, 1, 0. Well, if we graph these, we see that the vector 0, 4, 0 is along the y-axis, as is the vector 0, 1, 0. And these two vectors are parallel, which means that the angle between them is pi. So if the angle between these two vectors is pi, we know that the magnitude of the cross product u cross v is equal to the length of u times the length of v times sine of theta. Well, we know that theta is pi and sine of pi is 0. So that means it doesn't matter what u and v are, there's some length that the magnitude of u cross v is 0. And the direction of a cross product that equals 0, well, that's undefined. Now you try to find the magnitude and direction of u cross v, where u is 4, 0, 0, and v is 0, 1, 0. So go ahead and pause the video, and then come back and check your answer. So looking at these, if we plot them, we have the vector 4, 0, 0 and the vector 0, 1, 0. These form a 90-degree angle. So we can compute the magnitude. The magnitude of u cross v is equal to the length of u times the length of v times the sine of theta, and we determined that theta was 90 degrees, or pi over 2. So we are at, let's see, so the length of u is simply 4, the length of v is 1, and the sine of pi over 2 is 1. So the length of u cross v is equal to 4. We need to determine in what direction in this vector we are. So remember our right hand rule. We point our fingers in the direction of v with our palm towards, we point our fingers in the direction of u with our palm towards v. And then we curl our fingers towards v, and we find that our thumb has to be pointing down. Find the area of a parallelogram with sides u equals 4, 4, 0 and v equals 4, 4, 4 square root of 2. So when we look at these graphed, we see our two vectors. Looking at the angle in between them, we have a 45-degree angle, or the angle is pi over 4. So now that we know theta, theta is pi over 4. So we have the area of our parallelogram is the magnitude of u cross v, which is the length of u times the length of v times sine of theta. The length of u is the square root of 16 plus 16. The length of v is the square root of 16 plus 16 plus 16 times 4, 64. And sine of theta, sine of pi over 4 is square root of 2 over 2. So we have the square root of 32 times the square root of 96 times the square root of 2 over 2. And this is equal to about 39.19.